All right, check. There we go. We can use that one until I get this one working. It was working before. I must have disconnected. All right. So, how are you doing? How was your week?
Week was good.
I missed it last week, so I'm sorry. But I'm glad to be here now.
Yeah.
All right. So
work gets in the way.
Yeah, it does get in the way a little bit. We
you guys have to start paying us.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. So we can get advertising. I can get better equipment. This is disappointing because I know I had this in there, and it's not working right now. But I'll when we go to commercial, I'll fix it. So it's been I missed a week, so not much. I mean, we did the talk before they had the meeting, right?
Right.
On that agenda,
And we talked about the agenda.
That agenda, we kind of pretty much talked about it. That's the one that we have right here. Nothing too exciting on it, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and really the big takeaway was, it's now the end of March, and why aren't they back in the town hall yet?
Right. Certainly the weather has been better, so that doesn't make sense.
Right.
I mean, we ought to be back.
Yeah, and I didn't go to the meeting either, so I watched it online. That they put it up yesterday, I believe.
Right.
And it's just mumbles and stumbles. I mean, it is really without none of them on the board talk clearly, I don't think. So when you combine that with the cafeteria, what's it called? Cafetorium?
Oh, yeah. They call it cafetorium, I think.
Yeah. So, it's just echoey, and they just never get it right. And you can't hear anything. One of the field owners came in to talk, and I had to listen to it 3 times to hear what he was saying, just because there was so much background noise, and there wasn't the microphone right in front of him.
Right. Makes no sense.
No. So I can't wait for them to reopen that. Hopefully they do sometime soon. There's no real need not to, or there's no real reason not to.
Right.
Except, because they don't want transparency.
Here we go. Now I got the good one on.
Oh, good.
So there we go. So we're back. All right. So this speaker, I hope this microphone should be a lot better. This one here. So, no, I agree. I mean,
Are you both on?
Oh no, I have this one muffled,
okay.
So we should be all right. That was a backup, and it worked out well, I think. So yeah, I mean, I think 1, we do need to get back, and 2, we do need to have better meetings. Do you want to go over kind of what you posted on the Brimfield Matters?
If we use that as a
guide?
kind of our agenda.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So let's see. Oh, the first thing is the continuing saga and mismanagement of the select board, with particular focus on the building committee.
Yeah.
So in the past couple of weeks, and we alluded to this at the last meeting, where we were hopefully going to find some. We had some big news that we wanted to break, but we wanted to hold off until it was official.
Right.
The big news was that there were discussions being had by the new building committee with the select board, some members, talking about how, and certain members of the building committee, talking about how they didn't really have focus. They didn't have the knowledge that the old board did, and they just weren't very happy with the direction, and they were hoping that they would be able to bring back the old committee. And the select board member who they were talking to kind of agreed, according to the conversations that I've heard bits and pieces of, and basically got this building committee member to talk to the old building committee to see if they'd be willing to come back.
Right.
Now, don't forget, this is the same building committee, the old building committee that had a successful project.
Right.
Did an amazing job. Got all sorts of grief for throughout 7 years of planning and going in front of town meeting and being abused the whole time. They got their project done. It was a success. Mm-hmm. And the thanks they got was you're now disbanded.
Right.
You know, and most of them were told, the majority of the people on that board were department heads
Right.
who were told that, you know,
They couldn't be on the board.
Right.
They couldn't be on the future board.
yeah, because they're not impartial.
Right.
You know, so now this select person, I was telling the new building committee to ask if they'd be willing to come back.
Right.
So you know, there were discussions had there, and every member of the old building committee said they'd be willing to come back.
Wow.
You know, and the reason given was because it would help the community out, help the residents out.
Right.
And that's all they needed. They didn't need an apology. You know, I for one would have demanded an apology before I helped out at all.
Right.
But you know, I just didn't like the way it all
Well, I
happened.
mean, I think an acknowledgement of what they did, and then kind of
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just an open public request maybe to have them come back. Just, and that alone, if it was sincere, would kind of come across. If you worded it right, you could actually win.
Right.
You could win with a statement like that.
Right. But the whole previous building committee agreed to come back, no strings.
Yeah.
They wanted to continue helping the community.
That's impressive.
Yeah. It speaks volumes to the volunteers that we had.
So, is this official?
So then it came back and said, we'd all be willing to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got brought to the larger select board,
Right.
who said, nope, we don't want certain people, and it's not happening. And everybody else, anybody can reapply if they want to.
There you go. Cut off your nose and spite your face,
Yeah.
kind of thing, right?
So, you know, you had a way out. You had a win
Right.
with amazing residents willing to help, and you still couldn't do it for what's best for the town.
Right. You found a way. You found a way to take that opportunity to make things right and improve the relationship with 11 to 15 members. I mean, maybe not. At least start the conversation to improve it, and unite just that group that you kind of disbanded with a little bit of. I don't know, maybe not animosity, maybe a little bit strong, but certainly not with a lot of respect. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it would have
Very
been a good
disrespectful.
opportunity. It would have been a very good opportunity to kind of, oh well. So they didn't. Alas and alas.
Alas and alas. So there's no big story to
Yep.
break. Things are going to go status quo.
Yeah.
And we've got this building committee that's currently assembled that, you
Well,
know.
did they opt for an OPM?
Yes, they did.
All right.
So
Let's explain what that is.
I don't know how it went. I haven't heard, you know, apparently there was a meeting. I just heard about it or found it online this week, but they had a meeting on March 15th. And on March 15th, and I'm bringing it up, one of the things that was discussed, and it's interesting how it's worded, and it's, I think, important to get the wording of this. And I don't know the result of it, and I should have been prepared. But so there was a motion, or a hopeful motion, to vote to approve the OPM draft and submit to select board for release. So an OPM is the outside project manager.
Yeah, I think so.
I always get it wrong. There's something, but it's basically
Right.
someone that you hire to make sure that your project is done correct.
Right.
You know, and if there's problems, they're going to be the conduit. If the town says that, you know, you didn't seed with the right grass seed,
Right.
you know, the OPM is going to look at the contract and say, no, actually they did.
Right.
Or they're going to go back to the contractor and say, you know, this was in the contract, you got to make this right.
Right. So in effect, they're almost like
Mediator without a mediator.
yeah. You almost want to say like a general contractor that organizes the whole thing, but it's actually a level above that. 'Cause
Right.
There's lots of general contractors that will going to list that will report might be not quite the word, but really report to them that they would kind of be overseeing and on at least the liaison between the town, the building committee, and a lot of these contractors, subcontractors, architects, et cetera,
Right. So the important word with the OPM is project, which,
Right.
and this, I will concede that at the first building committee meeting, they had wanted to put together an engineer and architect RFP. And
Okay.
I had suggested that, and there was discussion there, and basically a couple of people said, you can't really get an architect and engineer yet because you don't have a project. And they said that it was only going to be a draft and used when we need it, but we wanted to get it ready. So okay, and this is when I was able to say, if you're gonna spend your time drafting something before you do an architect engineer, you should draft an OPM contract, and they would be able to help, provide templates for architect and engineer.
Right.
And I guess they took that as that's something that you should do
That would
now.
be the first step. Yeah.
But an OPM still requires a project.
Right.
And if you if the select board releases this and it goes forward, you're gonna have someone on and I don't know if they're expecting to use the OPM as kind of the developer of a project,
Right.
which would be very costly and but I guess going to the MO of the select board, if somebody can hire somebody to do something else that they can take credit for, they'll do it.
Right.
So maybe they're thinking, this OPM, let's pay them to do all the work, and then we can say it's our project.
Yeah, I mean, I think hiring somebody to be the project manager without a project, and they've got to start from square one to develop the project, and obviously meet with the board, orchestrate public hearings or whatever, at least facilitate that through the board, through the committee, I guess building committee is what I mean. That's a lot of hours that are going to be spent. And that is billable. Those are billable hours. I mean, these people aren't going to do it for nothing. So that is why most of the time when you have a building committee, they do all the grunt work. They get everything as close.
With any committee or board.
You do as much as you can to package it up and say, all right, we've gone as far as we can go. It is time to act on it. And then when you're ready to act on it, you get the OPM in, or maybe before, obviously before that, just in conversations, but you don't necessarily have the meter running the whole time. You just say, all right, when we have this project, let's meet for 3 different times, 2 hours at a time, and then we'll expect to have X, Y, and Z done by then. But now it's like if they're gonna have to write everything, the office is gonna write it. Those are billable hours, and so I don't know what the contract will look like, but they have to kind of work it out and figure out what it's gonna cost. Because it took 2 years to get a project to table. You know what I mean? It's a long time. There's a long time to work on.
And the old building committee spent 7 years. Before they.
And I didn't even add that stuff. I was adding like after they got the project kind of in their head, and they had to tweak it and mold it and basically cover it up a little bit to make it more presentable. Yeah. I don't know. It's something to consider. I don't know. We'll see what they say. But it wasn't a monetary value, right? It was just an open kind of like we'll just start the conversation and then who knows?
Right.
I mean, they need to have some sort of money value that they can spend. Does the money that the building committee 1.0 when they were at town meeting and they got, I think it was 50 for seed money. I'm pretty sure they actually asked for that to be, and they got it, if I remember right, at town meeting. Does that just carry over to this building committee?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And then, so that's probably the money they'll tap into.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That will not last.
No. And so we did get a message from the former building committee chair, building committee 1.0 co-chair,
Nice.
Mr. Miller, who says, in fairness, we hired a project manager to guide us, and Mary was fantastic.
So from the very get-go, from early on, it sounds like, oh. So there you go. I mean, maybe it makes more sense than not.
Yeah.
I guess.
But did you have a project in mind when you were going forward with Mary? I guess would be the question.
Yeah, was it from the very, very beginning, like before you even had drawings and or even ideas of what you were going to try to do? Because even an assessment of the old buildings and whatnot, having an OPM on board then wouldn't have made a lot of sense. But we'll see what he says. We'll see what they say.
At the first meeting of the new building committee, they wanted to start from scratch and look at every option, which included 297. Was it 297?
Yeah, I don't know.
Brookfield. The town hall, the annex. Mm-hmm. Something new, something different, and okay. So Mike says yes. It was from the very beginning.
Oh, all right. So I guess if you have them as a contingent, and so again, when we need your help, we'll ask you questions, billable hours for those, not to be like the mainstay, not to be the main person actually doing the meetings at every meeting or anything like that at the beginning. I can't imagine.
Right. Yeah.
But okay, well that will be interesting then to see how they go forward with that.
Yeah.
Especially since they need some guidance on what to do next.
And my fear, and maybe I'm just giving you my perspective, is if they come back and ask for another 50, I'd be very hard pressed to give it to them. I mean, the credibility on this board,
right?
When you had the 11 people that were on the original committee, there wasn't any doubt that I'll name a few, Mike and Chief Cuss and all of them, all 11. You could go through all 11 members, and there wasn't a single one that you would say, there's ulterior motives there.
Right.
And everybody, I mean, it was just the polar opposite of what this board has alleged.
It would be, honestly, we don't know what anybody's going to do at town meeting because we haven't gotten any, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit, I guess, in a minute. But there's been no hint of who needs what and what big projects are going to be voted upon at the annual town meeting. Usually there's an inkling of like, okay, this is going to come up, that's going to come up. Certainly we always knew that the building committee, because they always requested to have some say, and then when they came up with the 50, that was early on, everybody knew that that's what they were going to ask for to start the next project phase. So it would have to be this building committee that actually asked for that. Right. I mean, they should be the ones asking for it. And so I think they need to, there's a lot to throw at these guys. Quite honestly.
Oh yeah. It would not be a board that I would want to be on for anything.
It'd be kind of tough because it's going to take a month of Sundays just to kind of get up to speed on what's been done, and it's going to take another month of Sundays to try to figure out what the next step is.
Right.
And so asking for more money just for the sake of more money, they would have to really have it stipulated what it was going to go to.
Mr. Miller says there's also $17,000 from the second $50,000, so I believe there's been three $50,000
all right.
points. So they may have up to $67,000.
Okay.
If my math is correct.
Close enough.
Yeah.
It's close enough. All right. Well, we'll see what happens with Building Committee 2.0 and see how they can get things moving a little bit.
If they can.
If they can, right? All right.
So the IT issues. So that, once again, on their...
Yeah, what was on that agenda? What did it end up being? The IT issues that they're talking about?
So, basically... Sue was talking about she had discussions with someone from Tantascwa, and they raised the point that maybe we should look elsewhere because they're not sure what the staffing will be or any of that. So
gotcha.
Again, she was talking about employment stuff that I don't think was public or necessarily accurate. So, there's stuff I'd rather not say, but basically, it looks like they're going to be on the hook for a lot more money to go outside, and they're looking at vendors who are on the IT state blanket contract. And that's
Okay.
going to be that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's not been declared yet. I mean, they haven't really determined what they're doing with the IT.
Well, I mean, there should be a budget that should be discussed,
Right.
within their group, I would imagine. But, even last year, it was like pulling teeth to try to get them to discuss budgets.
Yeah.
Select board budgets.
Right.
In a select board meeting, but without it, how do you do the how do we approve the budget that's being pushed forward?
Right. Agree.
And I just don't get it. But actually, since we've got the agenda up, it does just continue to boggle my mind that, actually, a couple of points on this. There was the Chamber of Commerce requesting a booth at the annex. And I just don't see how we could, you could do that and have the 5 members of the committee vote to approve that. It's a Chamber of Commerce event or booth, that's a welcome booth.
Right.
And it's directly across from one of the select board members' places of business.
Right.
And also directly across the street from another member's parking area.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Is it going to influence them financially directly that day? I don't know.
It's tough. I mean, it is a welcome booth.
It is.
Where
it is.
people are, and I don't know how they find it, but if they do, it's, where newcomers should go first.
Right.
And if they're going there first, and depending on how it just looks wrong. It just feels wrong, and I will never get it.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that.
So, and then
I don't think there's anything else. Go ahead.
the other interesting part was, which is just a sad state of affairs. Everybody's been on board now for 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to the special and 1-day liquor license for someone, for the 3 shows.
Right.
It was like a multiple minute conversation to make sure that it was correct, because
Right.
it says 1 day, and but he's listed 3 weeks. How can that be? And
God.
and this came from a field owner, the chairman of the board, who's I think this is his 10th year on the board of selectmen.
Right.
And he still doesn't understand that a special permit, covers all 3 shows.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, you would think that they would have that pretty much under their belt.
Yeah.
And it should be, it should be easy. I mean, it ought to just sail through. I mean, it shouldn't waste any more than a minute.
Right. And when a permit comes in front of the select board, it's already gone through,
Yeah, we made stipulations of that. I mean, the assumption was like it's gone through taxes,
police
it's gone
chief,
through
taxes, building.
It's been approved by everybody.
Yeah.
So that it really ought to be mostly just a stamp of approval. Like, okay, just an awareness this is happening by that chance.
Yeah.
Unless you had some egregious reason not to.
But at the same time, I have to give Mr. Soto props, because every time it comes through, he asks if the approvals have been made.
Right.
And you could always say that if it's in front of us, then it's here.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's not bad to have that discussion out in public, just to show everybody that the processes are happening and they're happening correctly.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, just, you still don't know what's going on. and what your permits are. Now without the common vic, how many permits do they approve?
Yeah, there aren't that many. There's a lot less. There's a lot less. I've noticed it on the thing. It's just a tremendously lower number of permits. Where the permits now are going to be coming in, it's going to be to the vendors.
Right.
Those are going to be the big ones that kind of come through that are going to be usurping the time of that office for sure.
Right. But it also shows, because Teresa did not show up at that meeting.
Oh.
So, it shows what's missing when you lose the administrative assistant.
Right. Oh, I have to say, I mean, a meeting at the time without Carol would have been.
Oh yeah, it would have been ugly.
Yeah, and Teresa, I mean, really, honestly, they just know so much, and it's continuous what they know from year to year, at least month to month, week to week, year to year, and so that it's kind of fresh on their mind. And you ask what sometimes. I mean, admittedly, there would be questions that I ought to know the answer to, and then you just say, "All right, I should know that because it's been a while." But you have a great crutch. Yeah, I mean, it really does help again expedite the meeting for sure.
Yeah.
All right, there was a question on the. You want to talk about that?
The ARPA funds?
Or you want to kind of talk about?
Yeah, we can hit that later.
All right. So there was a ruling in the Mass Superior Court. I think it was. Let's see. I think I might even have this somewhere here, and I'll put it on my window, and I'll bring it over. So there was a ruling in Massachusetts Superior Court that about free speech. Sorry, I'm opening so many windows here. I got to find it. But so there was there was a person, I think it was in Southborough, and they this particular person during a period of public access. It was at the.
They have those?
Yeah, at the beginning they have. How did they worded it? They have a time where there's a public comment section at the beginning of their meeting, which is wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to have it in the middle of our meeting, but it's just nice to have it. But anyways, apparently this particular person wasn't always as cordial as some people are during such public access times, I suppose. But what was interesting, and I think I just want to make sure this is showing up on the let's see if I can make it bigger. It's hard for me to make it bigger on both. But what basically what they said was, although civility, of course, is to be encouraged, it cannot be required regarding the content of what may be said in a public comment section of a government meeting. That was the ruling. And basically what they said is, they would like people to be civil, but you can't mandate it by the law, I guess. I mean,
right.
By public access.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. So it did defend the rules about setting rules of that government body, making up certain rules as pertains to public access, and we've already heard that. And apparently one of those rules is not to allow it, so that is an option. But when it is open, they really can't. It's interesting that they can't restrict you for going afoul, maybe about of what they want to hear, or something along that line. So I thought that was really interesting.
And, I mean, this has come up, and people have talked to me about it, and even going on to who would want to be selectman when you're under the microscope and all that, based on the animosity that exists, which Brimfield Matters is, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
one of those means of animus. But my response is always, one of the big things that I thought was very important as a selectman was, on any subject, hearing from the public during that subject,
right.
And you had at the last meeting Chapter 90 money, which isn't a big deal and doesn't really need to be discussed. And George Adams said, "Where is Janes Hill Road?"
Right.
He doesn't know.
Right.
So if there was anybody in the meeting that did, and Suzanne did know, but there are going to be issues that a select board member or the whole board doesn't know a lot about.
Right.
And allowing a resident to talk about, what's the neighbor's property or whatever can be very valuable in figuring out what to do.
Agree.
And, and besides that, when the board is, fairly homogenous in their views, as this board is, you don't get a different point of view.
Right.
Which is another thing that's very important.
Right. I mean, the devil's advocate idea, came from, it's an old, with the Pope and everything. And basically, they would make a rule, and then there was literally someone there to do nothing but challenge what they were saying.
Really?
Yeah. And so the devil's advocate would be the one that says, that rule's, it's over the top, it's too draconian, it doesn't make any sense. And then you would have to justify it. And then when you felt like you could justify it against the devil's advocate, you had some sort of a rule. And so I think that when you have discourse like that, one, it points out foibles in your thought process that you say, okay, I never thought about that. And I think that's really important, especially as a government body. But it also opens up things for the other members to say, oh yeah, maybe three of us agree with that in the audience, rather than kind of what we were already thinking about up here. And so it makes no sense not to be able to have some sort of discourse that would, if it's, again, I think everybody agrees civility would be best.
But civility is two ways.
Civility is 100%
and
two ways.
I would argue until I'm blue in the face that, what started, the censorship, I'm just going to call it censorship, this board, of the last board that we were on,
right,
was because they, the majority of the board was not civil to the residents.
Right.
And didn't let them, you did something that you shouldn't have, that people were upset about, you let them talk.
Right.
And you try to come up with a reasonable, thing.
Right. And honestly, if you've got enough people that are have their ire up, maybe you need to look at what you're doing to get their ire up. I think that's just that's just common sense.
Right.
So I think the state ruling is really, really interesting. It does emphasize the desire to have public access to town governments, because they even mentioned that we really do like the idea of being able to speak and speak your mind. And I think that I thought it was interesting that they said basically you couldn't stop them from doing so, even if they were a little bit unruly. And I think of times when people have been quote unquote escorted out, or just about escorted out, for not even being uncivil. So I think that was illegal, according to this. I guess maybe it wasn't challenged up to that point. So I do remember seeing a few people escorted out.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sure. One of them was, she required him to do it on video.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Which was good.
Yep.
I like this. Michelle is writing in that Munson gives people time at 2 minutes to talk at the beginning of the meeting about anything they want. And when people make an effort to show up, it's usually because they have something to say.
Right.
And then she closes with, other than the very accurate Mike statement that she says at the end, but she closes the other part with, it costs nothing to listen. And it doesn't.
Right.
Right.
No, it's true.
If you give them a couple minutes to talk, give them a couple minutes to talk.
Agree. All right, let's see, go through a few of these things. We special town meeting. So if you remember, this actually came up, oh God, I don't even know how long ago it was, several weeks ago. It came up that there was going to be a special town meeting that talked about the rezoning based on flood zone analysis, and that there was going to be a public hearing to allow that. And I don't know if they've ever set up a date, I can look on the calendar, but I don't remember seeing a date.
I have been trying to find information out about this since this was written, but basically, I don't think it's going to be a special town meeting anymore. I think it's going to happen at the meeting, and basically, it's not the mapping that's going to be
decided upon.
Right. It's going to be bylaws that are required, and it's I've heard that different departments or boards in town are reviewing them and trying to do so with town council.
Okay.
I've heard some things about town council that maybe that wasn't the right decision either. Yep. If you can believe it.
I cannot believe it. No.
Another maybe wrong decision.
I forget what episode that was, but that was a while back.
Yeah.
In the summer.
But he did defend Chesty Morgan.
I knew that was going to come up.
I got to.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. It was a funny thing to say.
In the interview, for those that missed that episode, that was one of the big things that he wanted to talk about, and why we should, why they should make him town council. So
he did do it, I guess. What are you going to say?
Yeah, good for him.
Everybody else can just go. They can go look that up on Google.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I had to.
ChatGPT.
Paul knew about it.
No,
just saying.
I'm older. I'm older. Yep.
So anyway,
so
it's going to be a zoning bylaw change.
Okay.
And I would suggest that people, especially who might be in the floodplain, pay attention to this and look into when different hearings are being had.
Because they will have to have a hearing on
on
a bylaw change or a bylaw add on to the town meeting.
And it's very important because and we have to pass it, and it might be a sour pill to swallow.
Right.
But if we don't pass it, we will and I'm not talking from a place of great intelligence on this.
No, nobody ever accused you of that.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Wow. So, what I have heard is that we might get the town and all of our residents may not qualify for national flood insurance protection.
Okay.
If we don't pass these bylaws.
Yeah, and that's what they usually threaten with those.
Yeah.
If you don't take it.
Yeah. So that will be very important.
All right. So that's not on town meeting, but that will be at in public hearings, and then it will show up at the town meeting, the annual town meeting, which is in June.
Yes.
June I forget. I just read it too. If I wrote it down, and I'll come back to that. All right. So what else we got? The deadline for citizen warrant articles. I don't know. I haven't heard one iota about the warrant, and usually the warrant is damn near done by now.
Oh, absolutely.
And usually or Carol or Teresa or whoever's in that room they're pulling their hair out of their head to try to get it done, because they got to get it into the printer and they got to get things done. They got to get everything sent out. So there really ought to be very specific dates that are deadlines for certain things. We haven't seen very much. The only financial stuff we've seen have been via the FinCom meetings. To be honest, I haven't seen anything in the other. Other than
it's
a special executive session kind of thing. But so when is it?
It doesn't say on the town calendar.
I saw somebody. It was online anyhow. I did see it, but we'll get back to that. It's in June. We do have a couple of other things to talk about that are probably even more. Oh, there it is. Town meeting's June 12th. I did write it down. Oh, town election is June 20th. The caucus, I believe, is April.
Yeah, that's on here.
20th, maybe, or
you don't have that. Notes?
I do have.
I thought I saw it.
Yeah, I have the calendar up here somewhere, I think.
No, and in your notes, April 10th.
Yeah, I'll put that up there for people to see.
From 6 to 6:30.
There you go. Yep, there it is right there. So you want to explain what the caucus is?
So the caucus is where you nominate people for every open seat that's being elected.
There you go.
So one thing that I didn't know that I think certain members of the population did was that you can nominate up to 4 people and they could all be on. Well, I think it's 2.
Oh.
2 per.
I remember this.
And I always thought that whoever got nominated at the caucus got put on if you signed your name to it.
Right.
But there's a number of people that are allowed, and if there's more than that number, might be 2, then you have a vote on during the caucus, and the top 2 vote getters will be placed on, and then the other one would have to get either a write-in, or I think you can also get signatures between the caucus and the election, and if you get enough signatures, you can be put on.
Yes.
But there's a deadline for that as well. So
Which we should probably find that out and get that out there for sure. Maybe on our next show we can do that, because these are really important dates that are coming, and you don't want to miss these. If anybody wants to run for select board or any of the other positions that are available in the town, you need to know what's out there and how to go about doing it. And
right.
And I would suggest that you contact the clerk's office, or certainly contact us through email or whatnot. We can try to direct people that might want to join into local government.
Right. And I would love to have anybody that wants to be on the up for election, give them some time
right
here.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm also going to do my usual pitch that I've said to a couple of people that have asked about running, especially for selectmen. We need a good selectman on that board.
We do.
And I'm hoping that we can get someone. And I think that the best option we have would be someone who's been on prior boards. I mean, we've now had two members be put on that have had no board experience whatsoever.
Right. It does make it hard
Sue
to jump.
and George.
Yep.
And I think you've seen what happens. The out of the box thinking, works great if in the private industry, but you've got to know what's in the box before you before you go out.
Right. There are certain things that just ought to be done certain ways, and it's the way it has to be done.
Right.
And certainly ought to be done, I guess, as well. But I do agree that having some experience beforehand would help for sure. And I do think that coming on totally new is great. I mean, I came on totally naive, but they were really good. Yeah, I know. But they were really
I was
good.
just getting you
They
back.
were really good people that kind of cultivated and kind of educated you, and so you learned on the fly, and you learned what you hope to be the right way.
Right.
And you don't just take these tangents on just because you've got ideas that you just want to do without having their input or having them. And so I think that there was a lot of if you get somebody who's really new, it would be hard now.
Yeah.
It'd be hard because I don't think they've got, I know they're not going to get the guidance from the people that are there because they haven't been in there long enough, or they're given the wrong guidance and the wrong messages right off the bat.
Right.
So that's a problem. I mean, that's a problem when you have people withholding information, misarticulating information.
What do you mean by withholding information?
Well, even like we're talking about, I don't like to be told that these open meeting violation things were were just a lot of waste of time, when the reality was they're not a lot of waste of time. There are checks and balances in the system, and if you don't learn from them, then yes, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
But you have to learn from them. That's the whole idea, is that you make it better so that you don't make the same mistake more than once. And the reality is just kind of dismiss it. I don't like that. I just think it's wrong. If you can't just say, hey, we were wrong, what we did was wrong, and we have to kind of make amends, and instead you get, well, whatever, I don't really care, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're just gonna, instead of putting our revisions on the website, we just won't do anything with the website email, with the website agenda location. That's like, honestly, it's like elementary school stuff. You know, all right, you won't let me do that, I'm just not going to let you play with this. I'm not going to, it's very juvenile.
Oh, yeah.
And instead of making it better for the residents of the town to be able to see more, they will rather be spiteful and blame it on me that I said that the revisions ought not to be done right up to the minute of the meeting. And instead of saying, yeah, we shouldn't do the revisions, we're going to run a tight ship and we're going to post the agenda the way it is on Thursday afternoon, is going to be what, unless something comes up that you just can't undo. You would not have had the foresight to think that it would be on the agenda. Then that can be put on. I mean, if you got to talk about winter money for plowing, or if you got to talk about some other thing that happened that's important, do it. I have no problem with that. If you're doing it because so-and-so wants to be put on a board committee, or you want to add, then that's not right. It's just not right.
Right.
But so that's what I mean about that. And you don't want to teach somebody coming in new bad habits.
Right.
And I think that a lot of these habits are bad.
Yeah.
So they've got to get better. So anyhow, but we do, I really think that there's honestly, for me, there was pride. There was almost like an obligation to the town, that you came in and you said, you know what, I'll put aside my deep down feelings, but I will thrust my ideas out there and then see if they kind of go along. Because if everybody else at the table says that's ridiculous, then if the town thinks it's ridiculous, that's ridiculous.
Right.
But there are mechanisms to get that information out there, and I think that's we should have new people go on there. But I would just say that, boy, you'd have to go on with a heavy jacket.
Yeah,
because you're gonna get kind of, it's gonna be hard. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, this one in particular, has to be the start of a U-turn.
Yeah.
And for the first year, it's going to be tough. And you got to know your stuff, and I'll put it out there now, and I'll put him out there too, that if someone wants to run and you are unsure about the path of something or other,
right,
you can call me any day.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Yeah, there's a lot that I don't know, but I could always find out.
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
And Paul and I started going to these meetings after we got weren't reelected. And we were there, we had our hands raised to help them figure out the right way to do things.
Right.
They were dealing with projects that we had worked on.
Right.
And, just the simple transition would have made things a whole lot easier and made it done correctly in many ways.
Right. Yeah.
There wasn't a single member, just a simple example, there wasn't a single member of the sitting board that attended a single building committee meeting.
Right.
That I'm aware of. That, but...
Other than George at the very end.
Was he even at...
He went to one but it was their committee.
Yes.
Oh, as a resident, though.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't go in as...
Right.
I don't think.
So, no, I don't think a single one of them ever showed up...
Before that.
Before they were selectmen. Before they had already made up their minds that board has to go.
Yeah, that I agree with.
Which is sad. And I think the same thing happened with the police chief.
Yeah.
Nobody knew his name.
Right.
Before they said he's got to go.
Right.
And that's an exaggeration. They knew his name.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. All right. So anyhow, we will absolutely help whoever wants to. The caucus is in April, so we really encourage anybody to throw their hat into the ring, because I do think it's a worthy thing to try to do for the town and for your own. I think honestly, it's rewarding. It is rewarding generally, mostly.
As this board hopefully gets voted out or leaves, it will become more rewarding. I absolutely loved my first year.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it.
And that was, it was tough work, and you have to make some tough decisions, and you lose some friends or people that you thought were friends, but because you have to make decisions against, some things.
Right.
But but it was very rewarding.
Yep, I agree.
That first board, and then things started to go down.
I had one thing that I wanted to just mention. I have the meeting minutes on a different note. These are the meeting minutes from that meeting in March that they had, talking about what they were going to do with the treasurer office. So there was a special meeting for one item only. It was apparently because there was no treasurer, but the job application has been posted online, but no one's applied as of that particular time. So they noted a temporary solution was a contracting company, specifically aiding municipalities. And so they looked at a few. It looks like they looked at 3. They didn't name them all.
No,
but
and who knows how much they looked at them? I mean,
right? Yeah, I don't know.
With the attorneys, they at least had them in.
Who looked at them?
Exactly.
When?
Right. I mean, it wasn't an open meeting or an executive session about it.
Yeah. So anyhow, and really, this wouldn't have been an executive session. This would have been an open meeting. Now that we're learning about executive sessions, there's no way that the decision making of a company, because there was, unless you're looking again, they didn't have to divulge contracts and things like that. Well, actually, I think they would.
Yeah,
because it's not negotiating with an employee; it's an outside vendor. So 100%, it would have been an open meeting. Anyhow, they must have had a meeting amongst themselves and decided that there were 3, and they selected this one, Strategic Municipal Services LLC, and added that this company will take care of everything that needs to be done, and the hourly rate was $95 an hour, which apparently is a very good one, because it says so in the minutes.
That's right.
Which I'm not, and so they all voted on it, and he sounded enthusiastic. Well, he's getting $95 an hour, and so which is great. I think the town needs it. I would like to say that when you do the math for the treasurer, and if you use 32 hours a week and you had 52 weeks, and 72,000, it was $45 an hour, something like that, which is half that. So it should be noted that this is a lot more, because it's a contract, and I get it. It's an external contractor. How are they going to pay for it?
That's not in the minutes.
It's not in the minutes, and it doesn't look like they had. Like they didn't say it will come from this line item, because the line item for the treasurer is empty. So it's not empty. It's not empty. Right. It's not empty. It's not. It just
heading.
It's right. Red. It wasn't going to last until the end of the. Yeah. So you're right. Right. And having that change now, it should last. I suppose is what they were saying. Close. But it'll be close.
It's not going to if they're paying him $95.
Well. This is my question. So when you have that, and obviously FinCom said we can't use a revolving fund money for something that was foreseen. You know what I mean?
So, but was paying the treasurer collector.
Yes. So I'm wondering if they can do it with this.
I think they can.
I think so too. That was my this is an unforeseen event that the select board is realizing, and then if they go to FinCom, they could probably get this funded.
Right.
So I do think it can be funded. I do think it's going to put, if you consider this part of the treasurer collector's line item, even if it's a revolving fund transfer, significantly in the red.
And going back to how I would run things and how things were run when we were on the board, this doesn't have to be on the it probably doesn't have to be in the minutes
Right.
of, but I think it should. I think it is a requirement. If you're voting on something that's going to cost money, you have to specify what account it's coming from.
Yeah, we've always. I mean,
Yeah,
I guess
think that's a rule.
every board I've ever been on says that, unless it's crystal clear where it's coming
Yeah.
from. But usually the person asking for the money also says it. You know what I mean? Not in this case, obviously, but the person says, I need this for that. You say, well, we're going to get it. This is what I was thinking. It's like, okay, that seems right. Did you talk to FinCom?
Yeah.
And boom. And so that discussion is had for everything they're spending money on. So, I don't know, maybe ARPA funds.
ARPA funds. There you go.
There you go.
So, I guess my point is, like, when you're dealing with this, which is an issue. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Right.
whether you like it or not, there were misappropriated funds.
Yeah.
That is a strange thing because the selectmen knew about it.
Yeah, it shouldn't have happened.
The selectmen signed off every week that, okay, he's working extra hours. Okay.
Right.
But at the end of the day, he was supposed to get a certain hourly rate with a certain number of hours, and he exceeded that every week.
The number of hours. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yep.
it happened. So, with something as important as that, I would have hoped that they would have come out and said, this is going to have to be paid through a reserve fund transfer because,
Right.
we screwed up. They're never going to say that.
Right.
That's just not in their DNA.
Right.
But because of unforeseen issues, because,
It happened.
this
Right.
happened, we need to use,
Right.
we need to go forward.
We're
We're gonna exhaust the funds in the treasurer collector account.
Right.
And we're gonna tell the assistant to not do everything she can on the side or whatever quickly. But there should be some explanation of where the money's coming from and why they need it.
Right. Right. I agree. And on a related note, when they said that they posted a job for treasurer, I'm not sure the job is treasurer. I mean, didn't we have a bylaw? Wasn't that a bylaw change that made it treasurer collector?
Yeah. So it was. So the only tricky part with that is, I mean, if you look at the trend of municipalities right now, everybody is going to a treasurer collector, merged position.
Yeah.
We had to go at a warrant article and a vote because at the time we had an elected position.
Right. So it took 2 years. First we had to make it non-elected, make it appointed, and then we had to merge them.
Right.
I remember that. I remember going through that with Sue Hilker. Yeah. And
But it was,
Andrea.
I think the only reason why it was a warrant article was because we went from elected to appointed.
But it's still a bylaw. That
It
the
is.
position is a treasurer collector.
Oh, that's a
Right?
good point.
Isn't it? I mean, it's an art. That's the
It was an article.
That's the position, and I think it was voted on to make it. That is the position. So I'm not even sure you can
Change it if you want
You
it.
could change it just by putting up a posting saying we want a treasurer.
Yeah.
But I'm sure town council has weighed in on that,
Yes.
for good or for bad.
Who's our town council?
I don't know.
Come on, say it. Say it.
No, it's Cooperman. Koppelman.
Chesty.
No. What's his first name? All right, I'll have to find out what his name is.
I think it's Leonard.
I think you're right. I think it is Leonard. Yeah, I do remember the interview. So, so I'm not sure that legally, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah,
it's posted. Hopefully they'll get some bites. We need somebody in there. It's a position. Either we need that, or what I might do if I were them is I might approach the state and try to get a grant for regionalization of 5 small towns, treasurer and collector. It could be a full-time position.
Yeah.
And if you get the right motivated group or individuals, I think something like that could work, because right now they're all part-time anyways, and so I think if you be creative and you go to the town state, that might be because they like regionalization.
Absolutely.
And so maybe that would be a way that that's something that I would think about doing, but for what it's worth, which is about 2 cents. All right, let's see, I think we touched on meetings in the town hall. Oh, we talked about that at the beginning. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we already kind of touched on the meetings in the town hall. They should be back in the town hall. We should be live. We should be live streaming and posted ASAP. So no brainer. That's an easy one.
Right.
Anything?
So then I guess the last thing, we'll go back to the ARPA.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is also, just the lack of information, and it's just a philosophical difference between myself and the board, I guess.
Right.
And let me know if I'm wrong, but when you're spending $1 million or 800,000 or even $500,000 on a water system,
Right.
and you've spent all of, I'll be generous and say 15 minutes over the past year on discussing the water system updates that you plan on doing.
Oh yeah. I mean, there've been a lot of discussions on testing and this and that, and then we're going to do this because we have to do it for the long term.
Yeah.
Project. When the school was having some issues, so there's been a lot of testing, but not a lot of planning or elucidation of the plans. Like somebody kind of, what are you thinking?
And part of the planning has been, okay, we did this test and there's a leak in the undersized tank.
Right.
All right, fix that.
Right.
They either fixed that or they moved on and said, no, that's not it. And the last issue that I heard was that there was a leaky toilet.
Oh yeah,
that was leaking.
Yeah. That was running like thousands of gallons a day or whatever.
It came out to, I believe, 5 gallons a minute. So it was just continuously full throttle flushing.
Right, and I remember when that came up, and then there were crickets afterwards because they were talking about how there was way too much water being used in the school, and then when you ask, is that the cause of it? I don't remember getting an answer, but I mean, that could probably be the cause of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of water.
If that was, and they said they fixed it.
Right. So what's the update?
So why do we have to spend $500,000?
Right.
To get a second well drilled? I understand getting the pipe out to the town hall, and that's fine, well and good.
Yep.
But why do we need a second well if we solved the issue?
Right.
But I just, there are just pieces missing that, when we wanted to, cut a tree down, it was, although it was a tree on the common, we had a public hearing on it, or we were planning on it until we decided not to cut it down.
Right.
The gazebo had countless hearings that didn't cost as much as this.
Right.
If I guess going back to my philosophical difference, on the board, I realize that I'm one of 5 people. We're 2 of 5 people.
Right.
That are representing, 3,800.
Right.
And any dollar that we spend, we have to justify. And if we're spending $500,000, even if it comes from ARPA, the town has $500,000 in our pocket. And if you want to spend $500,000 on any single project,
right,
wouldn't you expect to hear about it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want, as a former selectman, I would have wanted the residents to know what was going on before I spent a dime.
Right.
So that, I could point like I did with the gazebo.
Right.
That path project. There were a lot of people that didn't want that path on the common.
True.
Right up until it got lit up.
Right.
And I took a lot of heat for that, designing it and putting it out, and but we had multiple meetings.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, there's just a process, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of alludes. It goes back to what we were just talking about. There's a process.
Yeah.
And you should abide by the process because it's there because hundreds of years have figured out that this is what it ought to be done. When I totally agree. I think that they are missing a big point with that.
yeah. So I would just like to know what's going on with it. So there is another.
Well, the other thing too. Sorry to interrupt, but the other thing too is like the ARPA funds now are just seem to be locked, secured in somebody's drawer. Like I had an ARPA fund request for upgrading all of the electronics down, video electronics down at the school. I thought it would be a great way to get the students into directing, into doing this kind of studio online presence and learning about the technology and getting that place wired for live streaming. It wasn't that much money, and it clearly was ARPA kind of in the category that would be covered by that. The police had an ATV. Wasn't that?
No, the fire.
The fire had a UTV.
A UTV.
The fire department asked for a UTV, and again, for public safety. So nothing. We got nothing.
The library had.
The library had some requests as well.
Yeah.
So why do 5 people get to say where this money is going to go just because of them, just because of what they want or what they think they want?
Right.
That's wrong. I think that's wrong too. These are really good projects, and if you throw it out there and had a public hearing about, all right, these are the 10 projects that we received in ARPA, and we want to kind of get an idea of what people want to hear about or do, and if everybody said, oh, water, then everybody says water. If nobody showed up and except the 2 people that said water, what am I going to do? I can't fight that.
Yeah.
But not to give people an opportunity to say where this money, which is tax money, by the way, all right, it's tax money, that it's emergency money that people have paid into taxes. So we all own some of it. We ought to have a way to say how that's spent. We ought to have a mechanism by which we say that project is just something that you have in your coat pocket, you want it, and we don't agree with it. I would rather do these other 4 things and deal with that water thing when it comes down. When, maybe with the project that the building committee is doing, have it integrated as part of that. Yes, it just, is it going to cost more money? I don't know. Everything's going to cost more money in the future, but if we're using the money to ARPA funds for something else, it's not like we lose the money. Right now, I think you have to use it. Well,
2024.
2024.
Well, it has to be earmarked by 2024.
Used by 2026.
And the project,
done by 26.
Right.
So yeah.
I would suggest that that's not all required. I think that we did have, when ARPA first started to be a reality, I believe we had I think you drafted an
application.
An application, but also the oversight. So it didn't have to go to town meeting. It is just money for the town that the town officials have at their disposal. But I believe you had said that it should be between the select board and the finance.
Right.
And accountant.
Yeah. So that it would be an open meeting. Right. And it would be a meeting that everybody had to, and if accounting said, if finance said, no, this is ridiculous, don't do it, or if somebody else stepped in and said that department shouldn't get that, then that's fine. We needed to have a vote on it. We needed to have a discussion about it, and we've had none. None.
Right. Well, that's the thing with this. Is it going to be 500,000? Is it going to be 800,000? Is it going to be 1.1 million? I mean, we've heard all sorts of ranges.
Right. I mean, the IT for the school was like 39,000 or something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't horrible, and and then we were gonna talk about security cameras and getting it in, and maybe it'd go up a little bit, depending on what you took advantage of, but it wasn't gonna be horrible.
Right.
And it would have been good for the kids in the future, and it would have been good for the town because we'd have live feeds from the school.
Right. So
anyway.
So yeah.
Yeah. So that's that. And that's all I gotta say about that. So it was a uneventful week.
So there was do you still have the select board agenda?
Yeah. at the top or the bottom?
Midway through.
Let me get over here and let's see if I can make that bigger for us.
So there was where is it now? Oh, the public's, no. Where the heck is it?
Oh, touchscreen.
I don't know where it is. I'll just go off of what I know.
Go off what you remember. I'll find it.
Yeah, there was a. Now I'm
No, you're just mad.
Yeah.
Probably the cover for
Maybe it wasn't even
cover
on
for
this
the
one.
report.
No, it was. Oh, it's right
Right in front of me.
Yeah, cancellation of public safety complex open house per Mike Miller.
Oh yeah.
You know, this was a couple weeks ago. It was, you know, a request for a public safety complex open house per Mike Miller.
Right.
You know, Mike Miller was the co-chair of the select board.
Right.
You know, and yes, he made the ask, but it was his whole board.
Right.
You know, and in the cancellation was because, you know, it was a very insulting approval. The building committee, the old building committee had requested $500 for a mailing. They rejected that.
Right.
They also requested that the new building committee be there and it be a form of, you know, torch passing ceremony. It was one of the things they
Right.
said.
How they
You know, and I forget what else. I think there was one or two other things that they put on there that.
Well, timing. The timing.
Oh yeah, the
was
time.
changed. Yeah.
They, you know, the whole building committee 1.0 agreed to the Saturday morning.
Right.
But now, you know, bring it in front of the select board. They had to make their change. It has to be the afternoon.
Sometime in the afternoon, time to be determined. I think is how
Right.
they let it. How
Yeah.
they let it go.
So with that,
Again, it's insulting.
Mike also told me where it was. Thanks, Mike. You know, there were so many rules. Mike said, "I'm not going to participate."
Right.
That's what he, you know, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to the effect of, "I don't want to participate anymore."
Right.
That didn't mean cancel it. It meant that Mike wasn't going to be there.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
this wasn't the Mike Miller show. I mean,
Right.
if he didn't want to participate and they still wanted to have it and they still thought it was a good idea, they still could have pressed on with it.
Right.
Clearly, they looked at that as an out.
Right. It was an out. It was a way to, you know, just do another dig at, you know, someone that
The
they
old
don't.
committee. Yeah. And
I-
yeah, particularly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very vindictive,
Yeah.
very juvenile, you know.
Yeah. All right. So.
And that's all I got to say about
I
that.
gotta say about that. All right. Well, I do have maybe one good thing. March 24th is
Yes.
What is
That's
that? So
Friday.
it's Friday. So Friday, 11 to 1, the St. Patrick's celebration party, and that's going to be at the Senior Center. We've mentioned it a few times. I'll leave it up there for people to kind of get familiar with it again. If you,
For those that can read all these words.
I didn't say it this time, Eva. It was not me. All right, and so yeah, I think that's it. All I had on that, and so yeah, I think that's all we had.
Yeah.
So if anybody has anything that they want to get put out there, advertisements or suggestions, just let us know. Send them over to our Brimfield Matters at gmail.com, or you could post it on Facebook on our page, and we'll try to get to announcements. We'll try to do our best. I think I'm trying to think of sports because that's usually what's going on, but I know baseball. I'm almost positive that the sign-ups are already done, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
I would call rec if that's the case. Look into it. They could always add people in, to be honest. They're always looking for people to help out. The fields are going to have to get clean. That's going to be out on the agenda at some point for the rec committee. So people look out for that and try to do something to kind of help the town out, and certainly help the kids out, get the fields all prepped. So.
And before you were a selectman, I believe you were on the rec committee, weren't you?
No, Sheila was. My wife Sheila was on the rec committee. So by default, I was out there with a rake.
And she was on planning.
And she was on planning.
Wow.
She
just continued to ride her coattails.
I know. She's far more versatile than I am. And I readily admit it. She's not here. That proves she's got brains. I don't. But anyways, what else? Is there anything else that you can think of that's going on in town?
I think that's about it.
I think that's it. All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, then I think what I will probably do is let everybody know. And we'll say goodbye, I think, at that point. And you guys, everybody have a good week, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.
Bye now.